Hello, I'm Elash Radinsky and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Alright, so let's begin with the so-called Russian Empire's latest love letter to a potential Trump victory. It was written before the big news, you see, hence potential. Anyway, believe me, this thing practically reads like a page torn from some sort of comedy. Dmitry Medvedev, the former president and current professional vodka enthusiast, is back at it. Medvedev, with what must have been just the right amount of, liquid inspiration, took to his keyboard to sing praises about Trump, calling him the ultimate businessman to the bone, who despises spending money on, well, useless allies, silly charitable projects, and bloated international organizations. In other words, he seems to be the ideal candidate in Russia's playbook for cutting back on global commitments and turning inward. Perfect for a Kremlin dream scenario. At least, this is what Dmitry seemed to believe at the time of writing it. Still, things change very rapidly, it seems, as after Trump's victory became official, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said no congratulations from Putin are forthcoming, at least not in the near future. That's the Kremlin being salty, regardless of the circumstances, I guess. Anyway, speaking of business, the Kremlin's latest business plan involves sending North Korean soldiers to the front lines at a cost of $2,000 a month. Of course, most of this money ends up lining the pockets of Pyongyang's top brass, so it's anyone's guess what actually trickles down to the soldiers themselves. Not much, probably. It's an arrangement that has cunning strategy written all over it. Russia supplies the funds, technology, and whatever North Korea wants, while Kim Jong-un sends over his loyal soldiers. Yes, loyal, but likely unpaid. That's the truth of it. As Moscow and Pyongyang continue to indulge in their bizarre alliance, Medvedev's comments remind us just how skewed things have become. The Kremlin's idea of business and allies has little to do with prosperity or cooperation and everything to do with the latest geopolitical chess game they are trying to play. Funny how you can cheat in a game of chess and still keep losing, by the way. Russia's GRU is at it again, our favorite pyromaniacs with passports. This time, they have allegedly set their sights on cargo planes headed to the US and Canada, supposedly planning to start fires mid-flight. Subtle, right? According to Western intelligence, the idea seems to have been that fires on board transatlantic planes would be the next brilliant move in Russia's not-so-secret guerrilla campaign against the West. So let's pause here to admire the artistry. Reports suggest that these incendiary devices were hidden in packages and actually ignited prematurely in DHL warehouses in the UK and Germany. Oops. The masterminds at GRU clearly didn't account for DHL's diligence in unpacking boxes, thereby thwarting this ingenious scheme. You have to wonder, did they really think a little fire would go unnoticed in a plane crossing the Atlantic? It seems Moscow's sabotage department could benefit from a refresher on basic chemistry. Spontaneous combustion doesn't play out quite the way they seem to think. So, Russia is preparing for a businessman presidency in the US, and as you can see, the country has its own way of doing business, especially with regards to trade. They want to ignite reinforced trade cooperation, I guess. Anyway, let's take a look now at how the guys at the Solovyov show look at those things. Surely you remember Solovyov, Russia's top inadvertent comedian. The more serious he tries to be, the more absurd he actually sounds.
Цепляется за любую возможность представить Россию исчадием ада и угрозой для всего мира. Европейцев пугает какими-то гибридными атаками, призывает готовить трехдневные запасы всего необходимого на случай кризисных ситуаций, в частности химических, биологических или ядерных инцидентов. Западные политики и СМИ с особым усердием продолжают нагонять ужас и по поводу договора о сотрудничестве между Россией и Северной Кореей. Я никак не могу понять, а в чем проблема?
Нет проблем. И вообще не существует.
Да нет, конечно, такой проблемы не существует. У нас есть официальный договор.
Да.
По этому договору, кого хотим, того предлагаем. На нашей территории. В чем проблема? Что вы так боитесь? Вы же рассказывали, что Северная Корея – это вообще ничто, что они никакие, что ха-ха-ха, сплошные санкции. Чего вы так испугались? Что случилось? Еще никто не видел, а уже вам так страшно. Ну, давайте потребуйте, чтобы вам памперсы, что ли, прислали для взрослых. Мы сейчас вообще завезем всех, а то как-то получается, как на разборках 90-х, да? Ты давай один приходи, мы с братьями тоже одни придем. Ну, то, что ни одну войну Америка не могла вести сама все время, и это англичане не кричали тогда, это показывает то, что вы слабые, вы настолько отчаявшиеся, как кричали. Чего так волноваться-то? Чего волноваться? Все будет хорошо. А Южной Корее советую выдохнуть, расслабиться.
Вы понимаете, в чем дело? Вот когда эта истерия нагнетается, да, первое, самое главное, нет никакой фазы и нет никакой силы, которая побудит Россию разговаривать с позиции слабого.
So yeah, North Koreans are preparing for real war. According to latest reports, they are doing so through friendly fire, apparently. Well, I mean, that's a part of modern conflict as well. It happens, so now they are trained in the art of friendly fire. Great. Anyway, Polish authorities have now detained a few unfortunate souls allegedly connected to the aforementioned incendiary plot, putting Russia's grand plan to the test before it even took off, literally. Perhaps the GRU thought they could spice things up by staging a few in-flight surprises. After all, the subtlety and nuance of setting things on fire have been core parts of Moscow's international diplomacy lately. If this is the kind of forward-thinking strategy Russia's intelligence service have in store, then perhaps it is not the West that should be worried. As Russian agents bumble around Europe fumbling their little fire starter kits, the world is reminded once again that Russia's concept of intelligence has apparently moved from Cold War tactics to a more, let's say, scorched earth approach. And also, premature detonation seems to figure high on the agenda there, but again, nothing new. Right, here we go again. Russian propaganda is bringing back its favorite zombie narrative, the so-called Black Transplantology campaign. Yes, they're dusting off this wild tale that started back in 2014, claiming that Ukrainian soldiers' organs are supposedly sold on the black market. Because when you can't win a war with facts or courage, apparently you turn to horror stories worthy of a B-movie. This time the Kremlin's creative minds have added a special twist. According to their latest fantasy, there is an actual ad floating around offering a Ukrainian soldier's heart for a modest sum of $70,000. Now, in the real world, that would be absurd. But in the Kremlin's parallel universe, this is of course the truth. Never mind that there is absolutely no proof of that. After all, why let facts ruin a perfectly twisted story, right? And to make it even more surreal, the announcement comes just as Ukraine's Anti-Disinformation Center warned about a surge of pro-Russian activity on social media. These posts are aiming to push this outlandish tale in a renewed effort to discredit Ukraine. In Russian propaganda land, it seems, no tale is too dark, no claim too absurd to sell as alleged reality. And let's not forget the real agenda here, to sow distrust and disgust among audiences, especially as the Kremlin gets more desperate by the day. It is a classic play from their playbook. If you can't compete on the battlefield or win over international respect, try to make your enemy look monstrous. Much as they would like us to believe their gothic horror scripts, however, we know better. And by the way, any of you remember the news of how Tucker Carlson claimed to have been assaulted by a demon? Yeah, a literal demon. This, apparently, is nothing next to what Russian scriptwriters have to offer on a daily basis. And with this, we conclude this episode of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.